and welcome to today's episode of LinkedIn with Louise. Today I have invited on somebody who I see sharing excellent content on LinkedIn regularly, and I suppose that's why actually the relationship I have with this person, Keith, is really what I see LinkedIn as being all about: connecting with somebody, engaging with them and building relationships with them. And that's led to me inviting Keith onto the podcast today. So I'm really excited to talk to my guest today all about how he uses LinkedIn. So welcome to the podcast, Keith Lewis.
Louise, thank you very much.
Keith, I usually let my guests introduce themselves because I think they do a much better job of it than me. So would you like to tell everybody who you are, what you do, and well, it's not your business, but what business you work for?
Yeah, sure. So Keith Lewis, I'm the UK social media manager for Zurich Insurance. We obviously a global insurance company with lots of different strands and lots of different products to get out in different ways. So I cover quite a lot of ground within my role. Some of it is content-based about how we use the channels that we've got as a brand. But also I do a lot of work around what the phrase I would use, employee advocacy. And how do we use our employees more effectively as a company, but how do they become more effective in the professional space that they operate in? So that's what I do for Zurich. Obviously keeps me very busy. And I kind of learn as I go from people like you on LinkedIn and trying to keep my head around all the different platforms, what content works, what doesn't work, how to go about doing stuff. So yeah, lots of different things to keep us all busy.
But really interesting then too, I would think.
Yeah, there is no such thing as an average day in my world, and every day can look slightly different.
Yeah,
and that's what I love about it.
Yes. When you said the words employee advocacy, immediately I thought about one of my friends, Shelley Warren. She's in my LinkedIn Learners Lab. She will be shouting yes at the podcast because that's completely in her wheelhouse. She's going to love this episode. So shout out to Shelley. Okay, so Keith, let's go back a little bit and talk to me about how you ended up in this role. Did you work in insurance initially and then move into social media, or did you start in a marketing role, or what happened?
None of those routes. My background's actually media and PR.
Okay.
So I come into social from that route. Right. And when if listeners hark back, they're old enough to hark back to the early 2000s when social was just kicking off and Twitter became a thing in 2008. At the time, there was lots of people sitting in press offices, which is what I was doing at the time, hearing about cyber squatting and social and making sure that companies like us, like ours, had their own handles so that somebody else didn't steal them and then tried to bribe us off with them.
I remember a lot of those big stories, actually.
Yeah, so I'd done that. So I'd figured that social was becoming more of a thing. So I bookmarked the Zurich UK handles just to stop someone else from getting it. And then we did some work about some of our consumer work and home and motor insurance and stuff like that. And it started to think, hang on, we've got this thing. We've got the handles. We know that people are out there talking about it. Let's just start. Let's just get going. And that was 2008. Done different roles since there. Actually left Zurich to go back to a job at the motor industry. Similar sort of principle in terms of how do we use social more to be professional and talk to at the time I was at a trade association. So how do we talk to our members? How do we talk to the journalists and the media around it? And then as back at Zurich, as corporate restructures go, you kind of look at opportunities and think, hang on, that's what I'm doing. I'm really interested in it. And there's a job vacancy over there. So I'll grab hold of that, which I was fortunate to then get. And I kind of sit in a slightly strange place in the social media world that I'm not in marketing. I sit in our external communications team. I have been within marketing in this role. I have been with our internal and external comms role team before. We've been together. Now we're separate. But I think one of the things that I do and what I like is that I'm one of the few in an organisation like ours that looks across the whole organisation. that I've kind of got an umbrella view and how we use social internally as well. Because we've got 4,500 people in the UK, 55,000 globally. And half the challenge within a large organisation, which many of your smaller company listeners,
we know what you mean,
may not be familiar with. It's just how do we navigate the company and share our stories internally. So we've got we moved to Workplace a couple of years ago,
which is
a Facebook product.
Platform.
Yeah, it's a Facebook product, but just for Zurich, for people in Zurich.
Yes,
and it's been fantastic to help people become more socially minded internally in the comfort blanket of just being amongst ourselves, really, and then to get them more social, to understand how it works, and then to lift them up and take them out and say, go and do that on LinkedIn or Twitter. So it's been a good grounding in different ways.
Keith, you're making me think about the LinkedIn company page updates. Do you have it yet on Zurich where you have the internal tab for members of staff only? So
yes, we do, but we aren't using it in that way yet. We've talked in the past about that because as a company, we chose to use a platform called LinkedIn Elevate.
Yes, that's right.
Which I know you've touched on a couple of episodes in the past. They're actually closing that platform down, and it's that product that they're bringing into the My Company tab. Yes. So we're still using Elevate as a company at the moment, but I think that's going to be a really interesting opportunity for larger firms. I think it's just for those 200, 250 employees plus at the moment.
I have a funny feeling that the My Company tab is even bigger. I'm trying to remember because I did talk about this in Social Media Examiner.
Yeah, it's certainly for the larger employee organisations.
Yes, it is.
But the value of it, which is how we've used Elevate, is that many listeners will know the struggle that company pages and brands get with organic traffic. But giving some of the content to our employees to share has added some massive value to us as a brand. But it's also really beneficial to them. So I was looking at some data in the last couple of weeks. So through the course of last year, we've managed to get over 6 million reach just from our employees sharing content.
Brilliant.
Which is great. And that was a 25% increase on the year before. So it's not just Zurich content, though. That's the key thing about this sort of sharing with employees is that they need to, if they're just sharing Zurich stuff, that makes them pretty dull.
Yeah.
We want them to share a range of content, and it might, as long as it's engaging, then we will put it into the platform for them to share on. And so it's the principle of that they're bringing into this My Company tab on LinkedIn, which is a reason why, particularly at the moment, larger companies need to not pay too much haste to the company pages are dead mantra that you often hear.
Yes, not from me.
Company pages are hard work, but they are. Particularly those on a larger scale, this will actually help, and it becomes a valid reason for us to have that ideas and think about how we can put good content into that My Company tab, which will just be for their employees. Yeah. They'll only see it, and the public won't see it. So it's an interesting thought process for us to be having as to what we put in there and how we encourage our employees to share that content.
Yeah, I think this is why, the people like you and I who keep our ears to the ground about things and things that are coming up, we're kind of learning these things, so we're ready for them when they happen. And I really do advocate for people to have a company page on LinkedIn, even when it's just you in the business. But definitely if you're a larger organization, to me, it's a real game changer, this My Company tab.
Yeah, and there's a few bits and pieces that LinkedIn need to work out in terms of employee verification.
Yes.
At the moment, anyone can say they can work for anyone.
Yes, I have done so many strategy sessions with clients, and they didn't realize that. Or some people, I worked with a guy this week, and he owns a video marketing company. And he says, yes, other people have attached themselves to our company. Like, yes.
So there's the old, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's the line that occasionally gets peddled that more people on LinkedIn say they work for Google than have ever worked for Google. I I heard it once and I liked it. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's that principle, isn't it? So I know the principle of Elevate is that there is a gateway. You do have to be you have to validate your existence as a Zurich employee to get into our version of Elevate. Mm-hmm. So they are definitely working on that employee verification element to it.
I think whenever I very first started out training on social media, I thought, I'm thinking that was 2013. I'm thinking that in 2013-14, you had to have a company email to be attached to the company page. I don't know whether I'll have to check that out actually after our recording.
So I don't remember that to some extent.
Okay.
And it's difficulty for, this is real minutiae, but for a company like ours that's global, a company email address looks very different to me in the UK than it does to my colleagues in Switzerland or Hong Kong or Australia. So we don't have one email address format. So we're not just at zurich.com. That's head office and corporate. In the UK, we're at uk.zurich.com. There are in organizations like ours, there are lots of different emails that people may have that does make this verification issue slightly trickier than it might be for small organizations who've only got one email domain.
Yes, we are. I mean, I think you and I are both geeky enough that we could probably talk about this a bit more, but the listeners would be going, wait, tell us more about Keith and what he does. So Keith, in terms of LinkedIn, I mean, I think that you probably know how I use LinkedIn about, starting conversations, building relationships. I know that that's what you do similarly with your personal posts. Yeah. Do you guide then people within your organization to do that kind of posting?
Yeah, because engagement is what drives people. But there's nothing worse than telling people just go share this, and then nothing happens. No one looks at it. They don't get any questions, and then the time that our colleagues have spent doing that to them is completely wasted.
Yeah.
So we've got to kind of help people and train. So all the work that you do with your clients, I do internally. Just as we're doing the same thing, but with a different, I guess, end game, different client base.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're telling the same story. We've got to try and get them to be more authentic, more real, to ask questions, to drive it. Going back to the platform, we're able to pose questions within the way that colleagues share it. So we're trying to help them to do that. But yeah. And you know what it's like. Sometimes you do a post and you think, oh, that hasn't worked. And then you wake up the following morning and suddenly it's got 10,000 views on it. So where did that come from, LinkedIn? And something happens either in an algorithm or you just hit a nail on the head. You think, as you know, that just a text only post on LinkedIn sometimes outperforms anything else.
Yeah,
So we're trying to get people to mix up what they do and how they do it.
Yes, it's interesting. So with my video marketing client, we were talking about video, obviously. And I said, we went through I was showing him the analytics on my posts, and my video posts get a quarter of my text only posts. But I like doing the videos, and I like the videos that I do quite often be, here's how to do something on your LinkedIn feed. And it still gets good engagement, but I do think it's important to mix up the kind of content you're sharing. Now, working within the insurance arena, because before we started recording, I was saying to you that I've worked with quite a few financial services clients and also other industries where people are cautious about social media. So what are some of the things that would hold somebody back from maybe using LinkedIn within your industry, Keith, and how can we allay their fears about it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole compliance world is a word that scares people. But I'd actually rather be in a position like mine in an organization, in a sector like ours, where people have that little alarm bell going off before they hit post. I'd much rather they have that thought process caked into their psyche before they just willy-nilly shoot from the hip. So to some extent, it's a helpful starting point.
Yes.
But what I do find is that people definitely stop. Their whole social content thing has these red barriers around it that says compliance. I think what I try and do is kind of think, what are the legalities? What are the compliance issues we need to think about? And is that everything, or is that just a small part?